Hi, today we're going to be talking about infectious diseases affecting Gulf War veterans. So we hope that you'll join us for that discussion. Hi, and welcome back to Hill and Ponton's VA Disability Blog. I am Natalia Joffrey, the company COO.
And I'm attorney Ann Lynn Scott.
Today we're going to be talking about infectious diseases affecting Gulf War veterans. And I know that numerous studies have come out recently about Gulf War veterans coming home physically sick. And so I think it's important for us to talk about that. What are these studies showing? Why are they coming home sick?
You'll hear a lot of times just the blanket term Gulf War syndrome. It's not a diagnosis in and of itself, but basically a lot of veterans returning from service in the Southwest Asia Theater of Operations, I think it's starting from August 2nd of 1990 forward, veterans were coming back with a whole range of different symptoms, a lot of gastrointestinal problems, headaches, fatigue, and couldn't get a diagnosis for them. And so there are a lot of different regulations about Gulf War conditions and that apply to Gulf War veterans. The infectious diseases is kind of one subcategory of that. And so we could probably talk for days about all Gulf War stuff. So that goes to tell you just how many issues there are surrounding this.
Yeah, I know that there were suspicions regarding the water that they were drinking while they were there. Is that what you've heard? What have you found? What do you know about that?
Water contamination is one of the sources for where some of these infectious diseases come from. Similar to that are just contaminated dairy products, so unpasteurized milk, raw or uncooked, undercooked meat and eggs, things like that. So the contaminated water over in that area was one source of where some of these infectious diseases were coming from.
Yeah, and I heard that even the bottled water wasn't safe, that there were, I guess, parasites and other infectious organisms that were found in the general, not only drinking water, that you could get sick just from swimming there, but that even the bottled water was found to be contaminated.
Exactly. So it's a wide range of potential, I guess, getting exposed to these bacterial diseases. Some of them are bacterial; they're not all bacterial, but there's 9 conditions of infection or that qualify as infectious diseases for the VA purpose of what they recognize as infectious diseases, and contaminated water is definitely one of the sources for those.
Are there presumptive VA benefits? We've talked about presumption before. Maybe you can tell everyone just a brief definition again of what a presumptive benefit is.
Sure. So presumption applies, it's basically a theory of proving service connection. So for regular service connection, you have to prove something happened in service, a current disability, and then a link between those two. Presumptive service connection is you only have to prove that you have a current disability and that something happened in service. The presumption basically provides the link, so it's less proof that a veteran has to provide. So with infectious diseases, the 9 that are recognized are afforded presumptive service connection from the VA.
Okay. And are they awarding presumptive benefits for Gulf War veterans?
Yes. So it is difficult. There's certain, you first have to qualify as a Gulf War veteran. Each of the infectious diseases have their own requirements of when that condition has to manifest. And then there's also what comes with a lot of these issues are the condition itself might resolve, but there's ongoing chronic residuals from it. So that kind of adds a whole nother layer where there's the presumption only applies to these conditions. But being aware of residuals, or, always just being open and honest with a doctor about things will be helpful.
Okay. And how does a veteran then make sure that they qualify for benefits? Are there certain dates that they need to have been in service?
Yes. So the first qualification is the area of service. So Southwest Asia Theater of Operations, it includes a whole list of different places. I would recommend looking up specifically where that is, because it is quite detailed. And infectious diseases, the interesting thing is with a lot of the Gulf War presumptions, so for chronic illness, unexplained illness, and other parts of Gulf War regulations, it does not apply to veterans who served in Afghanistan. But for infectious diseases, that presumption does apply to those veterans. So that's something that I think is important to point out, because if you served in Afghanistan and you have one of these conditions, the presumption applies to you, whereas the other Gulf War presumptions would not apply.
Can you give us the list of those presumptive conditions?
Yes, bear with me on pronouncing them. I'm going to do my best.
Okay.
So the first one is brucellosis. That is, a lot of these conditions have muscle joint pain, gastrointestinal issues that come with that. So brucellosis, that is spread from animals to humans, and is one of those examples with the unpasteurized milk, cheese, other dairy products. That's where that comes in. The next one is Campylobacter jejuni. I figure if you say it fast enough, it'll just sound right. This is a gastrointestinal one, abdominal pain, diarrhea. It's food poisoning. It's a type of food poisoning. Fever can be associated with it also, and this is one that has been associated with the contaminated water issues. The next is, the easiest way to refer to this is Q fever. So that's how I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
This is fever, headaches, gastrointestinal issues. This is one of the bacterial diseases of the 9. The next one is malaria. So that's pretty commonly.
We were just talking about malaria.
Yes, yes. So malaria is one. Chills, fever, sweats. This is caused by, it's transmitted by mosquitoes through a parasite. So that's another reason why it's so common, is mosquitoes are so common. The next one, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So this is a form of tuberculosis, so it affects the lungs. One of it's transferred or passed along, similar to other respiratory issues. Non-typhoid salmonella, that is similar to, run-of-the-mill salmonella, food, infected food, raw undercooked eggs. This is also another one. Contaminated water can be the cause of it. And not only can you get it from meat and eggs, but it can also get into fruits and vegetables. So another common.
But I'm assuming, Anne, this is not a situation where, like in normal life, not in service, if you get food poisoning, within 24 hours it's passed. With these conditions, is this something that it creates an inflammatory reaction at the time that then never gets better?
So, right, it's going to be something that is not just one day and you're done. Some of these conditions do resolve. They're not necessarily chronic, but they can result or lead to chronic issues, residuals of the problems. And you can be, I like to think of VA disability benefits as compensating someone for their symptoms. So if there's not a diagnosis, but you have symptoms and they can be attributed to these conditions, that's something to look at also. Just because there's not a diagnostic code for something doesn't mean you can't get benefits for it.
Okay, gotcha.
And then there's 2 more. Shigella, it's related to E. coli, so it's another gastrointestinal one.
Yeah.
Diarrhea, fever, stomach pains. This is similar to the salmonella. You get it through contaminated food and water. And the last one is visceral, bear with me, visceral leishmaniasis.
Good job,
I'm
Ann.
not sure if I said
I wouldn't
that
have even
correctly.
tried, but I'm sure if you have it, you know it. So.
An easier way to say it is black fever. So that's a lot.
Okay.
I should have led with that.
Yeah.
Fever, weight loss. This is one enlargement of the spleen and liver can be associated with that, and anemia. And then the last one, which is a very common one that I think a lot of people have heard of, is West Nile virus. So that is another one spread by mosquitoes, fever, headaches, the muscle pain, weakness. And muscle pain and weakness is not only found in a lot of these infectious diseases, but that's another common symptom that veterans returning from Gulf War service experience. So you see that not only with the unexplained illnesses, but with these infectious diseases as well.
Okay. What if the person has a different condition that's not in the list of conditions that you just gave? Can they potentially get presumptive benefits, or can they qualify for benefits in general?
So they can't qualify for the presumption. Presumption service connection won't apply because only those recognized infectious diseases well. It's important to note that, especially with Gulf War issues, research is ongoing. There's the Gulf War Registry that looks at a lot of different health issues that different veterans have. And so it's not set in stone that these are going to be the only 9 issues forever. So that list could change. And even if you do have a condition and it's not one of those 9 that I went through, you can still prove service connection. You're just going to have to prove direct service connection. So whereas with presumptive, you don't have to prove the link between the in-service incident and your current disability, with direct service connection, you will have to prove that link.
Okay. Any issues with these Gulf War related claims that you can share?
I would say one of the biggest that I see with Gulf War is just the VA misapplying their own regulations sometimes.
We're familiar with that.
Yes.
Heard of that before.
The Gulf War regulations, they're definitely tricky. They're complicated. There's a lot of different parts. There's some conditions that you can have a diagnosis for, but then they're considered a medically unexplained illness. So it's kind of counterintuitive. And so I see the VA misapplying the regulations a lot with something. If you didn't have one of these 9 infectious diseases and you're having to prove direct service connection, the regional office a lot of times will I see a lot of times not look at direct service connection. So they just consider, oh, well, it's not on this list for presumptive issues, so deny it. And in that case, you want to point out to them that that's not the only way to prove service connection for these issues or any issues. A similar thing applies to Agent Orange conditions. Just because something's not specifically listed by the VA as being presumptively linked to Agent Orange or Gulf War service, something like that, does not mean that a veteran can't prove service connection and be entitled to benefits.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks, Ann.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank y'all for joining us. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to visit our website or call our office. Otherwise, we hope to see you again.